What happens when a driver leading 230 laps suddenly disappears from the lineup? The Kansas weekend just became one of the most reshuffled race weekends of the 2026 season. Multiple confirmed driver and crew chief changes have emerged across both the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and the Cup Series, and the official entry lists reveal a pattern that changes everything heading into this crucial intermediate track showdown. Today we are breaking down the Kansas shakeup in complete detail. We will cover why Kyle Larson's replacement matters more than you think, reveal the major Hendrick Motorsports name stepping into the number 88, examine Connor Zillish's unexpected swap, discuss J.J. Yeley's replacement, and uncover a surprise crew chief change on the Cup side. This affects the entire competitive picture heading into Kansas Speedway this weekend, and the implications stretch far beyond just one driver change. Before we dive into the replacement itself, understanding Kyle Larson's recent form is absolutely critical because the performance he has been carrying makes this story far more significant than a routine driver swap. Larson just came off a Bristol Motor Speedway Cup Series race where he finished third after leading a race-high 284 laps and scoring strong stage points, even though Ty Gibbs ended up winning in overtime. That Bristol Cup performance demonstrated that Larson remains one of the most dominant forces in NASCAR right now, capable of controlling races at the highest level. The day before that Cup race, Larson nearly stole the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series Race 2, finishing second at Bristol after leading 230 laps before Connor Zillish surged late to capture the victory. That came after Larson had already won the O'Reilly race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in March, showing he can close out wins in NASCAR's second-tier series. He also ran fourth at Darlington Raceway when he subbed in for Alex Bowman in that same number 88 car earlier this season when Bowman was still dealing with his vertigo diagnosis. The consistency Larson has shown across both series has been remarkable. This is not a driver stepping away cold. This is not someone who has struggled recently and needs a break. This is a driver who has been very, very active and very, very fast in recent races across both the Cup Series and the O'Reilly Series. That context makes the Kansas change feel significantly bigger than it might otherwise. If Larson had looked off lately, you could shrug and say this is just a normal shuffle in the rotation. But that is not what is happening here. He has been right in the middle of the action, winning races and leading hundreds of laps. At Bristol especially, he looked like the guy everybody had to beat in both series. In Cup, he drove a winning caliber race and still ended up third. In the O'Reilly car, he looked capable of winning again and still got edged out at the finish line. So when his name suddenly disappears from the Kansas plan, it stands out immediately to anyone paying attention to the entry lists. This is the moment in the story where the discovery truly hits. The Kansas O'Reilly Auto Parts Series entry list confirmed that William Byron will drive the number 88 Junior Motorsports Chevrolet this weekend. NASCAR's official entry list stated it plainly. William Byron piloting the number 88 Junior Motorsports Chevrolet for the Kansas Lottery 300. That is the replacement. That is the move. That is why the story exploded the second people started really reading through the complete lineup and connecting the dots. The important clarification here is that this is not Byron stealing a Cup seat from Larson or some Hendrick Motorsports internal meltdown causing chaos. This is specifically about the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series schedule and the way Junior Motorsports has been rotating Hendrick-affiliated stars through the number 88 while Roger Carruth continues his own split-season arrangement across multiple teams. Larson was never locked into Kansas the way some fans naturally assumed after watching his dominant Bristol performance. In fact, reporting around the Kansas switch makes it clear that Larson is not scheduled to be back in the series until early May at Texas Motor Speedway, and Kansas is going to Byron instead as part of the pre-planned rotation. When you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it actually starts to make complete sense within the framework Hendrick Motorsports and Junior Motorsports established at the beginning of 2026. Larson already got extra work in this car this year beyond his original schedule. He won Las Vegas, ran Darlington in relief of Bowman when needed, then came back and nearly won Bristol too. Kansas, though, now becomes Byron's turn in the number 88 rotation, according to the schedule HendrickCars.com announced back in January 2026 when they revealed their full driver lineup for the season. If you're wondering why this feels sudden despite being pre-planned, it is because Larson's recent scorching pace made him feel like the obvious guy to keep in the car for as long as possible. His performances have been so strong that casual observers assumed he would just stay in the seat. But the broader plan was clearly always more complicated than simply riding the hot hand. Byron is not exactly a soft replacement either. This is still a major Hendrick Motorsports name dropping into a junior Motorsports Chevrolet with significant talent and experience. The seat is not getting weaker, it is just getting different. That matters tremendously because the story is not that Larson is gone and now the car is in trouble. The story is that Larson is out, Byron is in, and Kansas just got another headline driver added to an already competitive field. From a fan perspective, that represents a pretty serious swap of star power. If you're enjoying these NASCAR Central updates covering all the latest driver changes and breaking news, make sure you hit the like button, share this video with other NASCAR fans, and subscribe to the channel. We are pushing hard toward 4,000 subscribers right now. And I want to see if we can get this particular video to 100 likes because stories like this Kansas shakeup are exactly why this weekend is going to be so much fun to cover and analyze. Beyond Byron himself, there's another important layer here worth discussing in detail. The number 88 has basically become one of the most interesting rotating stories in the whole O'Reilly Auto Parts Series garage throughout 2026. Rajah Carruth is spending this weekend in the number 32 Jordan Anderson Racing Chevrolet, which keeps the number 88 open for a Cup Series regular again. This marks the fourth time this season Carruth has driven for Jordan Anderson Racing, while Cup drivers take turns in what is technically his primary ride. After Kansas, the reporting indicates Carruth is set to return to the number 88 at Talladega Superspeedway, while other Hendrick drivers also have later turns planned in that car throughout the remaining season. According to the schedule Hendrick Automotive Group released, Chase Elliott is set to compete in the July races at Chicagoland Speedway and Indianapolis Motor Speedway, while Alex Bowman is scheduled for late May at Nashville Superspeedway. Byron himself is not scheduled to return to the O'Reilly Series until the June race at Pocono Raceway, which is planned to be his third and final series start of the year. Kansas is not just a one-off surprise. It is part of a much bigger chessboard that Junior Motorsports and Hendrick Motorsports are managing across the entire 2026 season. That brings us to the next confirmed replacement this week, and this one involves Connor Zillish. Because the Kansas weekend is not only about Larson getting replaced. The guy who beat Larson at Bristol is also out of the O'Reilly car this weekend, creating another major lineup shift. Connor Zillish, after winning at Bristol Motor Speedway in the number 1 Junior Motorsports Chevrolet, is not returning in that car at Kansas Speedway. Instead, Carson Kvapil is back in the number 1 this weekend, while Zillish focuses on his Cup Series responsibilities with Trackhouse Racing. That means the driver who just denied Larson at Bristol in an exciting finish is stepping away from the Kansas O'Reilly race. And the team is flipping back to Kvapil again in a move confirmed by NASCAR's official entry list. This change is particularly fascinating because Carson Kvapil's 2026 season has been all over the place in terms of equipment and assignments. According to the Kansas replacement reporting from multiple sources, he has already switched cars 5 times between different rides throughout the opening months of the season. Kansas marks yet another change as he returns to the number 1 after driving the part-time number 9 at Bristol Motor Speedway the previous weekend. That kind of constant movement is extraordinarily hard for any driver, but especially challenging for a young driver still establishing himself. Kvapil is trying to piece together consistency from a constantly shifting setup, yet he remains right in the thick of the championship fight despite these obstacles. The significance here extends beyond just the individual moves. This is not simply that big names are showing up for one-off appearances. Multiple teams are reconfiguring their lineups on the fly heading into Kansas. Zillish just won at Bristol and is suddenly out of that winning car. Larson nearly won and is suddenly out of the 88. Byron is suddenly in the 88. Kvapil is sliding back over to the 1 car. These are not tiny footnotes buried in the entry list. These are major lineup changes affecting highly competitive cars with realistic winning potential at Kansas Speedway. Then you have the J.J. Yeley situation, which represents another confirmed replacement that could easily get overlooked if you're only focusing on the big junior motorsports names making headlines. Yeley will not drive the number 5, Hendrick racing forward at Kansas Speedway this weekend. Instead, Luke Baldwin is back in that car for his second career O'Reilly Auto Parts Series start. NASCAR's official Kansas entry list confirms Baldwin in the number 5, and the reporting around the swap confirms Yeley is the one stepping aside for this weekend's race. That matters significantly because Yeley has quietly been providing that team veteran experience while Hendrick Racing tries to hold down its place as the remaining full-time Ford operation in the series following the reduction of manufacturer involvement. Baldwin already got his first O'Reilly Series start at Martinsville Speedway back in March, where he finished 38th in difficult conditions. Kansas now becomes another valuable shot for him to build National Series experience and develop his skills at a 1.5-mile intermediate track. While the headlines are obviously going to focus more heavily on Byron replacing Larson, the Yeley to Baldwin move is still a real lineup change with important developmental implications for a young driver's career trajectory. The replacement theme is not stopping with drivers because over on the Cup Series side, Wood Brothers Racing is also making a significant change for Kansas, just not behind the wheel. NASCAR confirmed that Matt Swiderski will serve as acting crew chief for Josh Berry's number 21 Ford this weekend because Miles Stanley, the full-time crew chief of the car, is not traveling to Kansas due to personal reasons, according to a team spokesperson. Swiderski is not some random fill-in pulled from the general garage area either. NASCAR noted that he joined Wood Brothers Racing in the offseason as performance engineer director after 5 years as a Cup Series crew chief, and that he owns 3 Cup Series victories in that role. Swiderski spent the last 2 seasons at Trackhouse Racing, leading Daniel Suarez and the number 99 team, and also spent 3 seasons at Colleague Racing before that. He has 1 victory with Suarez and 2 victories with A.J. Allmendinger on his resume. That is a much bigger deal than it may sound at first hearing. Crew chief changes, even temporary ones, can affect absolutely everything from pit strategy execution to communication rhythm between the driver and the box to how a team reacts when the race starts going sideways and adjustments are needed. And with Josh Berry sitting 25th in the Cup Series standings through 8 races with only a pair of top 10 finishes, this is not exactly a casual weekend for that team. They desperately need stability, and instead they're adjusting on the fly at an important intermediate track where track position and pit strategy often determine the outcome. When you stack all of these changes together, Kansas becomes one of those weekends where the garage looks completely normal from far away. But the closer you get to the actual entry lists and start examining the details, the more things have actually changed significantly. Larson out, Byron in. Zillish out, Kvappel back in. Yeley out, Baldwin back in. Stanley out, Swiderski on the pit box. That represents a substantial amount of shuffling for one single race weekend across both series. This is exactly why the Larson story has grabbed so much attention throughout the NASCAR community. The pattern revealed through careful entry list analysis shows that once you notice Larson is out of the 88, you start realizing Kansas has quietly become one of the most reshuffled weekends of the entire month. One entry list change leads you to discover another, then another, and suddenly the whole competitive picture looks dramatically different than it did just 1 week ago at Bristol. Kansas becomes one of the most reshuffled weekends of the month when you account for all the movements happening simultaneously. As for Larson himself, this does not appear to be some panic story or hidden disaster brewing behind the scenes. This feels much more like straightforward schedule management inside a broader Hendrick Motorsports and Junior Motorsport arrangement that was established months ago. But from a passionate fan perspective, it still stings a little because the guy just ran second at Bristol in that car and looked absolutely capable of winning again. Whenever a driver is running that hot and then suddenly disappears from the lineup, people are naturally going to ask questions and want explanations for why you would take someone out who is performing at such a high level. In this particular case, the answer is simple and straightforward. William Byron. Plain and simple. If you're looking at Kansas and wondering what the biggest under-the-radar twist entering this weekend is, there it is. Kyle Larson will not be back in the number 88 this weekend at Kansas Speedway. William Byron is the confirmed replacement taking over that ride. Connor Zillish is also out of his Bristol winning ride. Carson Kvapil is back in the number 1. Luke Baldwin replaces J.J. Yeley in the Hendrick Racing Ford. Matt Swiderski takes over crew chief duties for Josh Berry at Wood Brothers Racing. That represents a tremendous amount of movement, and it is absolutely going to shape the whole conversation once the green flag drops on Saturday night. Subscribe to NASCAR Central for more breaking NASCAR news, lineup moves, garage drama, and race weekend reaction from both the Cup Series and O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Drop a like on this video, help us push past 4,000 subscribers, and let's try to get 100 likes on this one. Tell me in the comments if you had the choice for Kansas. Would you have kept Kyle Larson in that number 88 car given his recent performance? Or is William Byron the right move for this weekend? The debate is on.